Hey everyone, I'm Dan Black and welcome to Mpowertube. Today it is my honour and a privilege to be with the father of Australian karate, the great Hanshi, Tino Ceberano. Hanshi, you're in my heart. Thank you so much for being on Mpowertube today. Hanshi, in the series The Wisdom of the Masters, we explore concepts of mindset, mindfulness and spirituality and how they relate to the martial arts. Some 4 decades ago, I was introduced by you to one of the first to touch me with the martial mindset. And if you would share with everyone the importance of an effective mindset and how do we achieve it?
It is by, I suppose, way of really, as I put it, from all along in my studies, etc. Very simple, 3 questions of the what, why, and how. In the what was its origin in our martial arts study, or what it was that engaged in drawing us to the attention of our interest in martial art. It got me started in how I saw it as somewhat of a guidance to what ritual could be as to enhance a person's involvement. Because I grew up in a bit of a rough situation.
Yes.
To come from. So having to locate oneself to ease that particular situation, I looked at the very many things on how the training of the martial art had in fact brought influence to the stability of how I was to engage in this particular journey, or how I put it as my lifestyle. I brought about what it was to answer to that second question of why. And in the why, there was something that was very distinct about how I felt with people. I had at one time grown up, of course, with the situation of a very, very early imposition. Mom having to abandon us as a family, and having to be nurtured and reared by a father who was just an ordinary worker, etc., in the sugar plantations of Hawaii, and illiterate as he was, but had something that had gone on into later, showing me as that, if you want people to, or others to, really feel the same warmth that you would wish, because I thought everything was, I got into a little bit of that mischievous state of rebellion, and where did that love all go? Why mom isn't here, and etc., etc.
Yes.
So the difference of that was having to locate or try to be there to see, what it is. And I've had some good talks with my dad then, and him being a martial artist as well, and was brought on to what it was of his earlier years in his native country, the Philippines, was somewhat brought up with a lot of hostility, even seeing his father being shot by what they call the verdugos. They were like the extortioner, like the mafia of that era, right? The Spanish time. And he would pass on to me some very interesting things about how he sort of grew up and evaded that by having to get into this practice that we call martial arts, as in how we've got to understand why we do things as we do in martial art. In so much as how it would overcome even my period of time, chronologically, from the time I left my dad's, rearing, etc., to even go independent at an early age of my dad. At 15, I went onto the main island of Honolulu, our capital in Hawaii. I came from the island of Kauai, and lived on my own, having to take residence at 15.
Wow.
And having to try and still commit myself to learning, to advance myself. But it was hard case into one of the hardest areas in the city of Honolulu as well. And
so this is the developing, this is the
yes,
programming of the mindset that has given you that fortitude
absolutely,
and that determination. So this is the why, and then we move on to
how.
the how.
Yeah. So the how became, I suppose, exploratory, yes, in where do I take on
Right.
directions? How do I get on to, moving into what became as like even the sort of dreams of setting up of your ideals in a very distant manner, but just picturing there that there was always something to gain from it. You see, this is where I put to a lot of people the old saying from a very famous motivator, right? Where, Napoleon Hill. I go by these words like as if it's just really made for me.
Yes.
Conceive, believe, and achieve.
Yeah.
And so the how factor started with when I was in the Marines, joined the Marines, and became, set. Even whilst I was in the Marines, I had even decided then that I would go fully into my achievement of even becoming an officer, or having to get into the stage of what was to become somebody with a difference, somebody with substance. And then I gained that in that 4 years of active duty and then being reserved. But I have always wanted to travel. I've always wanted to see what lay beyond the, that blue horizon, etc., we call the Pacific. And that gave me opportunities with the Marines, to have to even come to Australia. And of course I was into the martial arts, which had been very significantly that sort of backup to my role of keeping on the straight and narrow, and having to observe what it is of this martial arts exchange with another in our class, the different, like periods of time of difficulty and overcoming that.
And the synergies between the military and, of course,
That's right.
that martial
Yes.
thinking.
Well, that happens to be where the key to why martial, that regimentation of how it is to bring about people's acceptance and contribution.
Yes.
Because in the Marines we often said you need a partner. You've got to be by, what we happen to use in our military terms, the buddy system. And so in continuing of our martial art, there was purpose. When we got on into even learning how to spar, we couldn't be like a one-man band. We've had to exchange, we've had to feel.
We had that
other.
discipline instilled at that point. So, Hanshi, may I get you to share perhaps from an attitudinal perspective, mindset, some of the challenges that you faced in your time. So how has that helped you deal and manage these particular events in your life?
If I may, I put it into, again, as in a nutshell, right? And I look at this in lieu of how I would even now say that I share because I care and I dare to do better than what I did of past.
Yes, awesome.
It is of all of the experiences that I've had that were sometimes when I put it as bad experiences, etc., that awoke me to, what it is of physical nature and having to overcome that. The experience brought on something of what I've had to maintain for the sort of correctiveness that I've had to do. And that contained within this framework of how come that I must do better, or how come that I've got to engage, and why is it that I've got to totally be in control, etc. I really feel that these lessons were there for a reason. And I have always said that everything was meant to be.
Yes.
Like as in a particular word that we gotten from our senior mentor and teachers in Japan. One particular teacher, Mpowertube Hanshi, the word shuhari, of 3 distinct letters, the shu, the ha, and the ri, started at the first core, the first hub, in other words, as like formation of a wheel. In that growth of infancy to what it is of choice, location, etc., what you are, is all contained in that hub. Then you've started to explore, expanding, causing the hub, which is the spokes that and now form in different directions.
Yes.
And there's a re that is philosophically put in many ideologies, such as even the ring on your finger, etc.
Yes.
The bound, the binding effect of what happens to be when you put all of the components together into the containing effect. And this rim is called the re. So you've got the hub, you've got the spokes that commanded on into your expansion, and you encircle now the re, as in containing all of this. It's formed a wheel, the shuhari. In that formation of the wheel, whether you traverse forward, back, reverse, in whatever way, it's expanding.
Yes, I love it.
That's it. Well, this was something that, it just dawned on me that this guy was really trying me out, because I was being put through an ordeal. It was something of, in fact, it was at a grading.
Right.
And we were sparring quite vigorously with each other, and suddenly, as I was up against the wall, I thought I'd just ease off so that I could move off into a more open field. And he took the advantage that pounced on me. But it was a head drive long, and I couldn't control it because I just went into a evasion method, but it was on his momentum of lifting it and got me into a what we call ukigoche, shoulder throw, and it was a head slammed on the floor.
Oh.
And I shook it off, and I come up and I said, now, do I handle this? And that I did. That I did. And it was that, I was quite naturally relieved, because I stood up against one of the top-notch fighters that woke me up to it, that I'm just as equally good, and how it would be in command of my survive to stay alive. Budo, the way of the warrior, beyond fighting. It may sound ambiguous to the thought of hostility as in a martial arts, but what it is beyond that, that we capture this interest now of the many variables of things that happens to be in that course of, like fighting, whether it's sparring, whether it's self-defense, whether it's an actual realism of protective of oneself, right? That there's so much to learn, but it goes back again to the very simple, items again of 3 steps progressive that I say we handle the fear management, the phobia elimination of all of those inherited influences that had been otherwise are stopped, and putting focus on what we are, on how we are, and where is it that we get to. Again, another 3 progression on that is the intention, the mind, right? The attention, your aim, and then the projection, the doingness. Budo beyond fighting has got something that opens and expands many thoughts, variables of how presentation can be now effectively done for others as you would unto you.
35 years ago, I remember moving on to mindfulness. I know I've shared this story with you before, but this is a technique that I've shared with many people over the years. And in actual fact, with great effect with people that suffer from anxiety. It was a black belt training, and it was a Saturday afternoon, and we were in some pretty full-on hardcore sparring. Some kumite about 40 minutes into it, and I remember I copped a big whack, and saw stars, and you said, "Come on, keep going," and of course I did, and being dizzy and seeing stars, I copped another whack, and I'd asked you, may I please get some paracetamol or whatever it was at the time, and that was not going to happen, and you sat me down, and I'll never forget it, because I call it now the where are you mindful technique, and it's extremely effective, and I use it for my kids. I have done since I was 4 years old. And you had me sit down, and you said, where are you? And I said, I'm in the dojo. No, where are you? And then well, in the suburb, we were involved. No, and it got from here right down to the colour of the mat where I was seated, how I was seated, and how I was breathing and what I was thinking. And it took all of 2 or 3 minutes, and I got up and no headache, and you had me continue on doing kumite. So my point being is, Hanshi, the importance of mindfulness, particularly nowadays with the dis-ease of mankind. Everyone seems to be suffering from one thing or another. How important is it today, these techniques that you shared with me all those years ago, how important, and if you could share your thoughts on mindfulness today, all these years later?
Yes, the byproduct of how. For a start, you know how it is like of a blind person, right? Not having the visionary perception of, except for what it is of his senses or her senses, that then comes out very evident of controlling factor. When we come on to the self,
yes,
location, where you are,
yes,
as a star, then having to bring on location with not only as in admission to location, but bringing on the very fact of what it is of your environment and how it is of your sensory perceptions, to even the touch, the smell,
yes,
the audio, concept, etc. And this happens to be in the very word in martial art, in karate, I'm talking about now, as what we say, Zanshin. The concept of being there, the concept of being in control, the concept of being so much as in reflection of your at ease with everything under your control, and having to be the one that you can see as self. On that, right, it is of what even was considered, by the famous Miyamoto Musashi, the swordsman, right, and in his even written concept of the Book of Five Rings that he put, knowing your enemy. The first instant of everything that we do is knowing your enemy. Wouldn't it be that even consideration to how we handle ourselves from the onset of location, that we would fear for ourselves first. Our very enemy, ourselves. In expanding from ourselves, we've got to take on these precepts enough location, having to understand where we are, how we are, what it is of our implement.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then we go into what is considered in another Japanese form of the martial arts, Hei Ho. our perimeter of defense.
Oh,
In our pyramid of defense, it goes wide, expanded in every sense of the word, knowing exactly what's there and for you to pursue this continuation
very excellent.
of that.
Very excellent. Moving on to spirituality and how it relates to martial arts, and in particular modern day martial arts, Hanshi. So I would like very much for you to share your thoughts and how spirituality relates to your world and your world, particularly in the martial arts.
Rather than make it so abstract, or however, I'd like to make it in a layman's term as like
please.
what we would feel as like understanding the staying power, the source. When we come on into the fact of meditation and whatever, we think of something centralized from within ourselves, where we come from. And this I even relate to as from, and why spirituality is of importance. The connection of the beingness, the connection of another, the connection of our very own, existence from each other, etc. When we are born, we're born connected up to our mom. We engage in the release of this, birth, and then we are cut from the umbilical cord to take residence in ourselves. From this centralized situation of our source, we start to develop. But little do we know that in our development, there's this development of exterior expansion that we feel or we are perceiving, and this is where we say the staying power. So the core that we relate to when we talk about the core, this is how I put it in the form of our spiritual beingness.
Yes.
Consolidated origin of reserve energy.
Oh, wonderful.
The Grandmaster Gogen Yamaguchi was, like as we've known, a priest of the Shinto religion. And often it was even known amongst the people that had gone to him from different parts of the world in training, etc. He also recommended that they would go to his friend, a Buddhist monk, a Zen monk from Kyoto, in his what's called temple, right, to go and do meditation for a weekend. And a lot of business people go there and just simply admit themselves to going and learning meditation with the Zen monk. And so I had taken this opportunity as well. I was already a fourth, and in fact it was during my trip of becoming a fifth then that I'd gone across there. And at this particular, it was like a special retreat. It was a temple. It was with the kind of rituals that went on, and even like what we've had as how we've eaten and how it was even so forth, prepared and all that. But with that experience of receiving this understanding of depth of spirituality, looking at what it was, of something very, very simple, but comparative to what other people would say as in prayers, as in mantras and whatever. I got to sit at the edge of this cascading, not waterfall because it was only a stream, but it was on the rock formation that was cascading, and we were to concentrate on this sound of the water, like as in a cascading. And it took a while before I understood exactly what was happening from within myself. The elements of water is a very, very strong part of our existence in every which way that we consider.
Understand.
And we think of water also as the strength of what is created in our entire, existence and everything. And when I I've started to understand what is it that this waterfall training even that all comprises of how we are challenging these elements brought about something that lifted me and made me feel as if it was suddenly the flow of this water, as in it passes and it continues on with never repeating itself.
Wow.
And for that reason, I even use my, very own words, not my very own word, because I've taken it from even one of my other grandmasters. Go with the flow.
Wow.
More power to you.
Truly excellent. Hanshi, you've touched so many people over so many years, many thousands of people for many decades, in such a meaningful and purposeful way. And for me personally, I say thank you. And it's been a blessing, and the values and the teachings that I use to this very day are as a direct result of you. You're in my heart, and I love you, and thank you so much for being on Mpowertube today, Hanshi.
Thank you. Thank you.